it, containing COVID, the KUM News takeover. Let's bring Nestor Licanto on here. Ness, so just give it to us. What's the latest with the Theodore Roosevelt?
Okay, yeah, this is breaking news. We just got off a briefing with the commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, that is Admiral J.C. Aquilino. So basically, it was about a half-hour briefing, but basically what he's saying is that they're doing all they can to, his top priority was the health and safety of the crew. He mentioned that he has been coordinating for the last 2 days with the governor and the government of Guam to utilize Tumon hotels to quarantine these sailors. He wouldn't say specifically how many at a time, but one reporter asked if he could confirm 1,000 sailors at a time that would be taken off the ship and quarantined. And then when they clear medically, then they would be returned back to the ship. In the meantime, they're going to clean the ship as, I imagine, as they take sailors off a certain part of the ship, they'll clean that ship, sanitize it. Once those sailors clear medically, then they'll be returned to the ship, and then the next group. I think one of his main points, because he was asked why not take them all off at the same time, clean the ship, and then put them back on board. And he said there needs to be a maintenance force on board, because this ship, the USS Theodore Roosevelt, in case anyone didn't know, that's the ship that's ported here, has 2 nuclear reactors. It has dozens of aircraft. It's got weapons, and it's got fuel. And they have to be able to maintain that, the security and operability of the ship. Another thing that he emphasized was that, and I think this was more geared towards enemies of the United States. He said several times, he mentioned that this ship, if it had to, is ready to respond to any conflict or action globally or in the Pacific. So he made that point a couple of times, which I thought was interesting, because that's where he's at. As the commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, he needs to make sure that this vessel, which is a key part.
This is a key ship, Ness. I mean, this is one of the most heavily guarded vessels in the United States Navy.
So he's got the almost unimaginable task of trying to weigh the health and safety of his sailors with the mission, which is to make sure that this vessel remains operational or capable of responding to any crisis situations within its area of operations. So that's the basics of what was mentioned.
Right. Can
you go back? Sorry,
Yeah,
I wanted if you could go back to
a lot
the
of questions.
1,000
Yeah, I know, I can
sailors.
imagine.
They were going to be quarantined or isolated, or what was that you mentioned about Tumon?
They have been in discussions for the last 2 days with the administration, with the governor, probably through Joint Region Marianas, I imagine, about using the hotels in Tumon to house the sailors that are going to be coming off the ship, so that they would be quarantined in the hotels.
So you mean to say that for the last 2 days, the governor and her people have been in discussion with the Navy about using hotels in Tumon for quarantine, but when we asked if they knew anything about the Roosevelt, we were told to go talk to the Admiral.
Yes. The Admiral, Admiral Aquilino is the one who said that. He said that they had been in discussion the last 2 days with the governor of Guam about that, and that, let's see, I got so much, and I'm not used to writing notes. I'm used to typing notes. So,
trying to read through your writing.
Yeah, okay. So this is the flow plan. This is what he said. The flow plan would allow them to take some sailors off. He wouldn't specify how many, although he was asked about a number, about 1,000 as the number, and he didn't say yes or no. They would be under 14-day quarantine or isolation. They would clean up the ship, I guess that portion of the ship where they were housed, and then put the sailors back on the ship. So that's the game plan. and so they need a place
that's
to
crazy.
house these 1,000 sailors at a time. And Tumon's got a lot of empty hotel rooms right now, so
Right.
that would seem to be the logical place. The question for the residents is going to be, how safe will that movement of sailors from a naval base Guam
Pierside.
to Tumon, and how safe will they be quarantined? All of those safety precautions to ensure that that virus or the potential for them to be carriers of the virus doesn't leak out into the civilian community. And I'm sure that's what is one of the primary things on the people's minds is how dangerous is it going to be for the civilian community, even though I get it. We support the military. And we want to ensure, and we feel for these sailors and their families. But we also feel want to be cautious about the civilian population. So, it behooves our leaders and the military leaders to ensure that whatever movement of those sailors is done in a way that protects the civilian population.
Yeah, Ness, was there anything in that press conference about testing? Because, right at the beginning of this, they said we're going to test all 5,000 sailors. Was there anything that they had said about that? So are we going to be seeing 1,000 sailors untested in Tumon quarantine?
No, they have been testing and they continue to test. So that will weed out who has contracted the virus and who hasn't. We will be able to, I believe, post that entire 30-minute press briefing on our Facebook site for people that want to, listen to it at their leisure.
Did they say
we'll
how
be following up.
soon this was going to start, this movement?
He said,
Slow plan.
"Oh God, he had a good quote there too. If I can find it."
Looking at Nestor's handwriting, you should have been a doctor.
Yeah,
I know.
exactly.
I put on my
He
glasses.
said he was asked about the timeline for moving to the hotels. He said, "We've been working on it for a couple of days. The urgency has been highlighted, and when do you want to do it? As soon as possible."
Okay. What about the number of positive cases? Was there anything provided?
He would not discuss specific numbers, similar to what we've been trying to work with JRMC, Joint Region Marianas Public Affairs, and they're and I can feel for them. I mean, we've been hounding them for information, and they just are not authorized at this level here to discuss it. And even the commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet would not discuss specific numbers. So, but he did make the point repeatedly that any bad guys out there who are thinking of taking advantage of this situation, this ship is still ready to go. So don't even try it. Right? That was a clear message that he kept repeating.
But I mean, if they're taking 1,000 sailors off the ship, I don't even.
Yeah, he did not confirm that number.
Right.
But he did not say no. He did
Okay.
not say no. He was asked that by one of the reporters, I think, from one of the national media. So, yeah. So we'll need to follow up with Leon Guerrero administration.
Well, you get one
for
question,
information.
Ness. So is this going to be the question?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult doing one
You might
question,
as well
one
say
follow-up at a
what your
time.
question is now, so you guys can prepare for it.
Well,
Yeah.
first of all, I think everybody's going to want to ask that question.
Yeah.
So,
Or like what we've been doing. We've been trying to get that information indirectly. I'm sure
Right.
maybe Mary Rhodes would be able to tell us if hotels are prepping for
I did want to ask you, they talk about bringing in any sort of medical professionals in the military
Yeah,
to Guam.
Good question. Thanks for reminding me. Yes, they're bringing in some marine medical personnel to assist in this effort too. I'm not sure. He didn't mention exactly when, but hey, the Marines are on the way. The Marine medical.
right. And so we talked to Dr. Hoa this morning, and he had said that if, the federal resources get doctors here, get the medical staff here, and he thinks that they're likely to stay behind and assist somehow locally.
Yeah, and we also asked before about, and Joe and I shot. It just coincidental that the Cope North exercise involved what to do for field field hospitals. They actually set up field hospital arrangements. I think in Saipan was one that we saw. So, I mean, that capability they just recently trained for. So, I mean, that's another option, I suppose.
Wow, so much going on.
So much going on, yeah.
So we've got the Marines coming in, medical professionals from the Marines coming in. The possibility that we're going, well, no, not possibility at this point, the reality that we're going to see thousands of sailors from the USS Roosevelt being quarantined at local hotels.
Yeah. And one of the other things that I wanted to point out is that this was all seemingly triggered by a very dramatic letter from the commander of this ship, Captain
Yes,
Crozier.
that's right.
That's crazy. That's what we've been talking about all morning, is that you had the captain of the Roosevelt write a letter, basically help. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, this was a major SOS from this captain who is obviously very, very concerned about the safety and health of his troops.
And I don't know why we're not seeing that level of concern coming from our local government. I mean, if that's how the captain of the ship is feeling, and that's the response we're seeing from the Secretary of the Navy, and them trying to get this info out, we just hope that we can get more transparency.
And this is dated the 30th of March. Today is April 1st.
Right, so it's 2 days old.
Actually, it's yesterday their time.
Right.
So, yeah, it was just yesterday that that letter went out, and it spread. I think the San Francisco Chronicle was the first one that got an exclusive, and then that spread.
It's
And
on CBS News. That was the one we were reading this morning.
yeah, and then when it got out to all the major media outlets, it forced the military to come forward, step forward, and tell us what is going on.
Yeah.
And that's all we really want to
Yeah.
know.
You find that people,
they've been working on it for 2 days. So
and people just want to know. I mean, you know, if good news, bad news,
Yeah.
just tell us and we'll deal with it. That's where I think we're at now, is people just don't want to be kept in the dark.
And like I said earlier, they are human beings. And, I know there may be people that are concerned, but we can't just leave them on the ship. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and we've got 20 of our own on that ship
Yeah.
too, and all of their family and friends want to know:
Are concerned.
are they safe?
Yeah,
What's
so-
going on?
And obviously not if you read this letter. The link is on our
They're not
Facebook
safe, yeah.
page.
Okay.
So,
Ness,
right.
thanks. I know you're going to be following this.
I go back to sleep now.
Sleep? What? Sleep.
No, there's been very little sleep going on. Around here.
Thank you, Ness.
All right.
So again, that was Nestor